Hi, I'm Chad with Move Forward Guitar. This lesson is from our series, How to Memorize Guitar Notes. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how you can use intervals to help you memorize all the notes on your fretboard. First off, if you like all the diagrams from this series, including the diagrams from this lesson, you can download our free e-guide, Memorize Guitar Notes. But I am working on it right now as I'm filming this lesson, so it might not be available as you're watching the lesson. But once it is available, a link will pop up on the screen that will allow you to download it. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to download it when it is available. This is part 17 from our series, How to Memorize Guitar Notes. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So I'm going to show you a trick and exercise that you can use that will not only help you memorize the notes up and down your fretboard, but will also teach you the sounds of intervals, which is extremely important in learning the guitar and come in really handy down the road. And this will help you in improvising, playing chords, coming up with your own chord voicings, and so on. So what we're going to do is just start with one note on the 6th string, and to keep it simple, I'm just starting with the C note. And what we're going to do is play the C note, and one at a time find all the other notes from C to C. So for example, you would find C sharp / D flat, then next you would find D, then next you'd find D sharp / E flat, and then you'd find E, and so on, all the way through getting back to another C, which I'll explain what I'm talking about in a second, just because that won't make too much sense yet. So the first note we're going to find along with the C is the C sharp or D flat. And we're not looking for it on the same string, which is just a half step apart. We're looking for it on all the other strings. Like I said, you're going to play the C note, and depending how big your hands are, how big your stretch is at this point, you're going to try and hold it and find all the other, we'll just call them C sharps for now to keep it simple, all the other C sharps, and play both notes at the same time, or play the C note first and keep holding it and then play the C sharp. It doesn't really matter. So for example, the first one you could find on the 5th string would be right here. And our goal is to do the ones that are closest. So for example, this is reachable for most people, or a lot of people, but the one up here probably isn't unless you have a really big stretch. So just go for the one that's closest, or if there's two that you can reach, go for both. And like I said, if you can't hold this stretch, if that's too far of a stretch for you, just play the C at first, let go, and then play the C sharp. But if you can, hold down the C and then play the next note so you can really hear the intervals ringing out together. And this will really help you down the road when you're, like I said, improvising or coming up with cool chord voicings and much more. So if you can reach, you can find the one up there, and then you move to the next string, which is a 4th string, and find it. And then you move to the next string and find it, the next string, and that can be played there, or if you have a really big stretch right there, but you might not be able to reach either of those. Those are both really big stretches. And then the next string and find it there, and that's a pretty easy one to reach. So your goal really is to just find that C sharp on each string. So not the 6th string, that's not so important because we're playing the C on that 6th string and we're trying to play both notes together. So go to the 5th string, the 4th string, the 3rd string, the 2nd string, and the 1st string, and find that C sharp. So this will really force you to visualize where that note is. And then once you've done it with the C sharp, we're going to do it with the D. So the next note up after C sharp chromatically is D, so we're just going to go do the same thing. So we're going to find it on each of the strings. So that one right there is pretty easy to reach. Then you can go to the next string, find it there, go to the next string, go to the next string. That's a really hard stretch, and then that is as well. You might not be able to reach those, and go to the next string and do it through all the notes. So your next note would be E flat or D sharp, your next note would be E, then after that would be F, and then F sharp or G flat, then G, all the way until you do C again. So you hold C again, then you find it on the 5th string, the closest one you can reach, and both those might be hard for you. Then you go to the next string and get the closest one you can reach, then the next string, then the next, and then the next, and then you found all the C's on all the other strings. So these would all either be unisons or octaves apart. For example, that's a unison note, that's an octave apart, that's an octave apart, and so on, all the way, and this is 2 octaves apart. And this is something you just kind of have to try out and test it out. What your goal is to hold the lowest note, play all these other notes at the same time. If you can't reach, play them one at a time. But you're going to hear some of these sound really cool. Some of them are going to be pretty dissonant, which means that they don't sound good to our ears. But others are going to sound really strong, really cool. You're going to come up with cool sounds doing this. And a lot of players play with big intervals like this or create chords by doing this. So not only, like I said, are you memorizing where these notes land and being forced to find them on each of the strings, but you're going to come up with really cool sounds at the same time. And then of course you can start with C but then do another note. You could do G, do the same thing. So your next note that you would find would be G sharp. Then after that you'd find A, and so on. Just move chromatically until you've reached that same note again. You're playing G on the 6th string and then finding G on all the other strings at the same time. So that's how you can memorize the notes on your fretboard using intervals. Go ahead and move on to the next lesson where I'm going to show you how you can memorize the notes by moving triads vertically, which I'll explain in that lesson. And be sure to download the e-guide. All the diagrams are in there, and be sure to subscribe because we had at least one new lesson every day.